You're listening to Tabletop Arcanum, a podcast dedicated to learning and exploring the hobby of tabletop gaming. Your hosts are Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, so sit back and relax as we talk, discuss, and joke our way through the hobby we love so much.
Walpurgis Night, May's Eve, is always a nightmare in witch-hunted Arkham. There are bad doings, and a child or two frequently go missing. This year, Miskatonic University students engaged in occult studies have been turning up dead. Arkham Police, in deference to your unusual expertise, have asked for your help to get to the root of the matter. Time is of the essence. After Walpurgis Night, the trail will grow cold, and the culprits will retreat to the shadows until the next Witches' Sabbath, when the next cycle of deaths will begin. As private investigator Howard Lovecraft, you will investigate events based on the stories The Dreams in the Witch House, The Thing on the Doorstep, and The Unnameable. Welcome to Tabletop Arcanum. We're your hosts,
Justin
and Ricky. And as you can tell from my rambling, we're going to be talking about Arkham Noir.
Arkham Noir.
Arkham Noir.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, new, not really new game, but definitely new-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for a little bit.
I think it came out 2017. MSRP is what, like, running around like 20?
Not even.
Yeah.
Really. It's a small solo box card game, which is kind of why we did it, and a little bit different. So, before we really dive into Arkham Noir and what our thoughts and feelings are on it, let's go into our wall recap. What do you got?
Got a lot of this, and then other than that, unfortunately, since we just had the Oscars this past Sunday, I have been doing a lot of
movie watching?
Prepping, for that.
Okay.
Me and my girlfriend have been just watching nothing but movies, and she doesn't want to play any Harry Potter while watching a movie because she has to be very focused on it. Interesting, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
very.
Right.
I've slowed down the last 2 weeks, personally, myself. Because it was like a whirlwind of gaming, and then work and other things have popped up, so kicked off the Eberron D&D campaign, continued the Otter Deep Dragon Heist game, got some Marvel Champions with the other Goblin scenario, so it comes with the Green Goblin comes with a full Goblin mode and then a version that is Norman/Goblin. So it's like two different scenarios in the same box.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to play the other half of that box last week. Played some Pandemic Legacy Season 2. Got through a couple more months of that. Still have a little bit more to go. But things are dialing up into the crazy levels there. A couple friends of mine and I worked to puzzle out the game Checkpoint, which is all about reading very carefully, and if you miss up something, even if it looks like a toss-away line or rule, you've already gone too far and ruined the game and messed up and losing points. And it's kind of a golf, low score is good score.
Mm.
So gaining points is bad. In preparation for Game of Thrones Worlds, during the LCG night this last week, most of the Games of Thrones LCG members were practicing for Worlds. Those who were not going for Worlds, we ran through a solo standalone scenario of Lord of the Rings, the card game. Had a lot of fun with that. Pretty much ransacked the dwarven ruins for search of a treasure, but a dragon was chasing us the entire time. And then Gimli went ham on that dragon once we could. And that Gimli and that dragon, man, that was a tale to tell. Don't mess with them. And then actually what's more fun was the playtest opportunity that I had last weekend, which was the Kickstarted game called Legacies by Jason Brooks. He's a local Chicagoan like we are. So he came out to the store with a couple of our other connected individuals, and we played a 6-player version, playtesting it for him, kind of stress test some of the changes he made before it goes into full production. because the Kickstarter is over, but the pledge manager will open soon. But he's still kind of tweaking some clarification, some card balancing here and there just to make sure it runs smoothly. So with 6 players, we kind of did what we could with it. It's very icon heavy. It's a medium to heavy weight. I've played heavier games than this. There are way heavier games than this, but it's definitely on the far end of medium. Medium well.
Yeah. Toasty.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. It's there's a lot of gears, lots of things puzzle pieces are moving around, and the whole idea is you play. It's over. The game takes place over 300 years. There's essentially 6 total rounds. Every 2 rounds is a new era, but each round is essentially like a 50-year span generation, and you play successors to your main character. So you have these relationships, and you build the successors, and they give you different powers as you go on. So lots of neat stuff going into it. I did end up squeaking past a victory. I was doing pretty okay in the first half of the first quarter of the game, fell behind in the midpoint, and then a couple things lined up where I was able to make money worth victory points at the end through an endgame scoring mechanic, which normally is not always the case, and was able to just generate income and become literally like famous by being just rich.
Yeah,
which made me win.
Yeah.
So it was one of those, like, I didn't see it coming. It kind of fell into my lap. And if it wasn't for that, I would not have won. I probably would have been last. So it's got a little bit more fine-tuning to go, but it's got some bones that are pretty solid in that game. I do appreciate for that. The art in it is really neat for what is already out, but we didn't get to see a lot of it because there's a lot of pending portraits and things on the characters, but it's all like sketch art, which is really cool.
That's really cool.
A little different to see. Early 1900s looking.
And I know you uploaded a picture of that to our Instagram, Twitter, everything like that. So if you guys want to take a look at that, make sure to stop on over there. Hey, it's always going to be Tabletop Arcanum anywhere you go.
Yep,
that's us.
And yeah, we'll be in probably touch with Jason to give you further updates, like when the pledge manager might go up again, in case you do want to jump in on it and you miss the Kickstarter itself, you can at least still jump in and get it. That's it. And then Arkham Noir to kind of fill and round out the other edges. Yeah.
And other than that, gaming news that we did, or gaming stuff that we did, we got our rooms for Gen Con.
Yep.
We will be there.
Gen Con is a fun housing nightmare.
Yeah. We had a few separate people get earlier times. I think our times were just stupid late. I think mine was like after 8 p.m. And at that point, there's no reason to log on. But we have friends, and I think your wife got something earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So we got rooms. For anyone who is looking to go to Gen Con, if you were like us originally, where we got late time slots, make sure just to keep logging on. Especially there's a cutoff date. I believe it's in June.
It was in June last year.
Yeah, there's going to be a cutoff date where people have to either decide they want to keep the room or get rid of it, right. And if they without being charged for a full night.
Yeah.
So definitely keep checking, especially around then, because that's when people finally say, "Okay, we have too many rooms," or "Well, I can't make it," or whatever. So
yeah, and it's one of the things. Just keep checking, and better rooms or different rooms will open up from time to time as people cancel the reservations,
move around or consolidate.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces, or other rooms get unlocked too, essentially, because
they thought they were going to need extra ones. And
a lot of it comes down to is blocking for vendors and retailers and other attendees. So once they kind of dialed that in a little bit better, I know some of those rooms that are sometimes reserved for those will fall into the regular housing portal. So just keep checking. If you didn't get anything, that's actually one of the best things. Just kind of stalk it, check it from day to day or every couple days.
Yeah.
And you'll never know what you'll pop up.
Yeah, last year we went from being about like 7 miles away to
attach to the convention center.
Yeah, just because I randomly logged in in June and just so happened to find something nice. So, all right, but like we said at the top of the episode, we are here to talk about Arkham Noir.
Indeed.
First impressions, Justin. How do you feel about this?
It's a gritty-looking art style, which I do appreciate. It does capture the noir feel, grimy detective look on the cover. The cards and the card art is all black and white.
It's like the patina, like aged.
Yep.
It looks like the paper on it has been aged.
Very sketchy style and very icon heavy. There's very little reading you need to do. It's all icons on the cards.
There's mostly no reading to do.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean,
so it's still yeah. Other thing that I kind of liked as a first impression on it was all the reference cards that literally tell you all the different, like, this is step 1, this is step 2 of your turn. Kind of lay out your board, and everything kind of flows into it. So we have a criticism about that piece, but the fact that it literally, like, okay, here's card 1, your discard stack is going to be to the left of this, your leads are going to be to the right of this, your open cases are going to be below this card. Above this card is where you have your closed cases, your big pictures. And then on the other side you have your draw stack, your victim cards, as well as where your stability penalty and your time penalty are. So it's got these nice reference cards which allow you to set up the board and keep your play organized, which when you're playing just a solo card game can get a little messy because you're managing the leads, you're managing your cases, and they can kind of get a little wild if you don't have any structure to it.
Yeah.
So that's all first impressions. Anything to add?
No, yeah, you hit it right on the head. It is. I do really enjoy the art on this. I know I talk about the art and everything.
Yeah.
That's who I am. Aesthetically, I mean, you do get the gritty noir feeling. I mean, it almost looks like rubber stamps and some points of it, like the portraits, which is really cool. But so, what do you feel they did good with this, Justin?
So, positive things about this is it is a clean solo game. I don't see any way that you could make this multiplayer. It's a nice little solitaire game, different than your 52 card solitaire. They capture the creepy mystery mythos in the art and the cards because some of them are just people, some of them are creatures or things in the mythos, and it's based on 3. This is case 1 that we demoed and reviewed, but there's other cases, and this one is particularly based off of 3 of the short stories, so it's characters and locations and objects that are kind of found within those stories.
Yeah.
So it does a really good job of keeping that theme and the narrative going. Icons are very, like, once you've played it a few times, they're very easy to understand. The only ones is sometimes when you play the card, there's an action that there are some of them that only come up on a few cards, but they do give you a very clean reference card of, like, here it is. Here's all the icons that you're going to see action-wise. Just figure out which one you have, and here's like a 2 to 3 words of, oh, this means draw from the take a card out of the discard pile, or take a card from here. So, or be able to take the cards out of the time and shuffle them back in. Weird little cookie mechanics, but they're all very useful.
Yeah.
With the exception of all the bad stuff that can potentially have. So the good stuff is usually optional, and it's colored gold, and the bad stuff is black, and it's mandatory. So usually the bad stuff you have to do no matter what. Sometimes those mandatory things you can make them semi-beneficial, because sometimes it's like discard a card from your hand, and maybe you have a card that you just don't want to hold on to.
Yeah.
but you're holding on to it for that reason, to be able to dump it later.
Yeah. Or like they discard one card from the leads row, which if you have a card that just is completely useless to what you're trying to do,
Right.
it's nice to just purge it instead of having to deal with it later on.
Yeah, so the whole thing is you're trying to solve these murder cases by linking the cards, and they have an icon on left and right. Essentially, to play a card in the case, you have to match the icon to the on the left side of your card that you're playing to the right side of the card in the last slot of the case. So you're kind of creating this connect the dots story.
Yeah.
With it, and then
So-
ideally someone will have puzzle pieces on them. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to solve these cases by getting 5 story icons across the top, close the case, and then any puzzle pieces in that case that you closed become part of the quote-unquote big picture, which is where you're trying to solve the occult mystery and things of that nature. And once you get enough big picture pieces, you win.
Mm-hmm.
But you can run out of victims, which is essentially running out of time. You can run out of cards, which then makes more victims pop up, and if you run out of victims, again, you lose. Or, like any Arkham game, there's a sanity-based mechanic, where you just become too unstable to even be an effective detective anymore. So, it's got a little bit give and take in there, which is nice. So that's my good stuff. What do you got?
I mean, you hit it all on the head. I mean, I really appreciate. I mean, it's so simplistic that the only things that are actually written on the cards are the reference cards, but they're reference cards.
Right.
And then on the actual cards themselves, they'll have the name of characters. They'll have the name of location. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just what is the card is really
Yeah.
all it is.
Yeah.
So once you've learned the game, there is actually no translation or reading. It's all icons, which is a good thing for it. But let's tip into some of the criticisms here.
And the criticisms, I mean, we both feel that
The rule book is rough to get through.
Yeah.
Because it's so icon heavy.
Yeah. And then when you want to reference something later on, you have to reread the entire thing because, which isn't a bad thing.
Luckily, it's a two-sided single page rule book, so there's quite a bit. It's small text, by the way. It's super small, but it's it's a double-sided one-sheeter. So you aren't flipping through like a 48-page rule book.
Yeah.
So kudos to that.
But everything's placed in there on when you may experience it for the first time.
Correct.
So you're reading it, and like we had a question about when something's discarded, when we qualify it for the time
penalty versus...
time penalty. Just straight discarding it.
Versus straight discarding it versus using it as a sanity check.
Yeah. And it turns out that...
The rule's in there.
Yeah,
but
the
it's
rule's in
under...
their action phase.
Right.
So
the action phase is, one of the two phases of the game. Essentially, it's action phase and maintenance phase. So action is you do something with the first clue card, and that can be either taken into your hand, max hand size 3, play it into the open case. If you can connect the story, you can do that. Or you can discard it to play a card from your hand. Or you can discard it to close an open case, or you can discard it and just pass. All those are viable options. So you pretty much are looking at that first card in the row and like, what am I doing with that? Are you spending it to do something else? But then in the maintenance phase, you might need to do what they call stability check or sanity check. And that's where you flip the top card. But if it has a sanity icon, it goes in the sanity pool penalty. And if it doesn't, it gets discarded. But then you have to figure out, well, if it has a time penalty, if it's discarded, then it goes into the time penalty box instead.
Yeah.
And that's where, kind of we had to learn that order.
Yeah.
So it got a little bit trickier because the rules weren't very clean.
I mean, when you're looking at
in the rule book.
Yeah, when you're looking at the rule book, you could be towards the very end of it, and you're looking at something, and it just says, discard the first lead card, and then it'll say, see, discard clue card. So you have to go back and remember that.
And find where that is again.
Yeah. So
rule book, once you understand the game, really you only need to reference it here and there with weird situations, but ultimately, it takes a little bit getting used to.
The other thing that we both talked about was there's no real lore it's a skinned game. It feels like a skinned game.
Mm-hmm.
You can really put anything on these cards, and the game would feel exactly the same.
Right.
You may have to change some of the verbiage in the rulebook, but...
Right. So, like, clue types, there's person of interest, a threat, an artifact, evidence, location, and monster.
Yeah.
With those 6 different clue types,
this could be a Marvel game, this could be a Star Wars game.
Person, object, evidence, place, creature, danger. Like, we're very generic on those, which is a great thing because that gives it kind of a system or a platform that we could make other non-Arkham versions of this. Mm-hmm. Modern crime detective, easy mm-hmm. translation. It's just because it's like that sketchy 1920s era look and full of things like the object from the outside, which is a weird creature or weird like tentacle thing, or you might have the Arkham Sanitarium as a location. So that's really pulling the theme. But unless you're actually looking at the names of these cards and seeing and like building your own narrative, it doesn't do it for you. Mm-hmm. Not just saying that it has to, but you have to put the effort in to really get it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, you brought this up, Ricky, was the setup cards are very nice. However, you don't know where you need to space them.
Yeah,
on the first couple times you set it up.
Pet peeve of mine is games that want you to set up from the outside in. I do appreciate because a lot of times when you look at the rule book on how to set something up, it's just the board already set up.
Right.
Whereas this one had it actually like labeled step A, step B, step C, step
right.
Step D. But step D was put the 5 cards in the middle of it, but steps A through C are set up everything that's going to be around that.
Cards,
so I would have rather have had it put these out.
Yeah. Place the deck down. Put this reference card next to it. Put this card next to it. Next.
And put out your 5.
Take out the 5 cards that are leads, and now on the other side of those, at the end of the leads, put the other reference cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have cleaned it up just enough to make it a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah.
Initial setup, your first couple games are going to be rough. Once you've played it a few times, you kind of get a decent idea of the spatial need. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about the spatial thing, and it's kind of weird, to set it up, it's obnoxious, but once it's set up, it's such a beautiful setup in the sense that your leads are... your victim cards are directly under the reference card. You have 5 leads that go to the right of that. And that's where you build your story. And the 6th slot is your deck, or your draw pile. And you play leads left to right, and you keep building. And as soon as you play your 7th card in a case, which is now past your draw deck, so you have this nice visual line. And once you get there, you have to make a sanity check for each additional card on top of whatever else it does. Mm-hmm. So there's some visual clues in the setup that really tell you how to remind you how to play the game, essentially. So kudos on that, honestly.
Yeah.
It was a really nice way of building it. This is a game I would bring for traveling.
Yeah. I would definitely suggest it.
It's a deck of cards. That's all it is. I don't need the rule book or manual, and the box is twice the size that it needs.
Yeah, I would go get like a
little deck box.
Deck box for like Magic or whatever.
Or if I had 2 cases, if I got the sequel and got 2 cases, take the insert out, ban both decks, and now you have 2 cases put together.
So I am going to talk about the sequel, or case number 2, before we get into who we suggest it for. And since you brought that up, the only thing that's going to be different that it looks like between 1 and 2 are going to be the art on the cards, and then the...
your professional contact.
Yeah.
Which is your once per game ability that you can play, which you can use the once per game ability of any professional contact from any set you own. Mm-hmm. So that's transferable, but case 1, the Witch Cult of Murders, the victims in the deck are fixed. You can't blend it with the expansion. The expansion has to use its own thing. And that is because there's a particular makeup of clues and keys and types of cards, so I get kind of the reasoning behind it. But you're right, there's not going to be a huge swing difference. It's just going to be slightly different variants of the cards you already have, so...
You might as well, if you are looking at buying one, buy one based on whoever that contact is going to be, because that's
your difference.
Yeah.
The combination of cards may shift a little bit. Like this one's a little bit heavy in the evidence, locations, and people.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much on the artifacts or monsters. So like the next one might be heavier. May be shifted a little bit. Like less people, more monsters, or less people, more artifacts, or less locations. Like that's what's going to change.
Yeah.
The other thing is interesting is there is two of the reference, all the reference cards are double-sided, and I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but you can set up your difficulty based on which sides of the cards you're playing. So to win, you have to have either 5 or 6 big picture cards. So you can choose how far do you need to progress in the game. Likewise, the penalty box or these your time penalty and your stability penalty can either be 5 or more cards in them, or 6 or more cards in them.
Mm-hmm.
The stability penalty, when you hit that limit, the game's over. You've gone crazy. The time penalty is literally another case opens up because someone else just came up dead.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's nobody left in your victim pile
then it's game
over.
Yeah.
So you only have so much time or cards or actions before game over.
Yeah.
So, overall, what's your final thoughts on this one?
It's an interesting standalone game.
Mm-hmm.
I would play it if it was anything other than Arkham as well. As an Arkham game or as an H.P. Lovecraft type game, I don't see it standing out compared to, and I mean, we're tainted because we're Fantasy Flight boys, unfortunately.
When it comes to the Arkham games, they do well.
Yeah.
There's some other ones like Death May Die was a lot of fun, but it had a different flavor, different feel.
Mm-hmm. I do love the art on it. I do love the idea of the game. And it's cheap enough to throw into your lineup. And like you were saying, it's a great traveling game.
Right.
I mean, the only thing that you're going to need is space. The setup is about the size of an actual solitaire game.
Yep.
So it doesn't get that much bigger than that.
They're narrow American-sized cards, not your standard playing cards, so they're a little bit narrower.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to play 6, 7, 8, 9 cards wide at most, and maybe 4 or 5 cards high.
Yeah.
So, not a huge table. Like a tray table is enough, and honestly, if you need to squish the cards a little bit tighter, you can get away with it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I enjoy it as a nice little solitaire game. It's nothing mind-blowing or game-breaking or rush out, buy. It has a nice low-ish price point. It's over $10, but it's under $20. So it's in a nice little suite. You can pick this up and play it a handful of times and not feel guilty that that's all you got out of it. Your mileage doesn't have to go very far on this one. It is challenging. I do appreciate that it is, while as a solo game, it is tough.
It's super tough.
There's some other solo games out there that are just as tough, but they have a lot more variance within them. Honestly, One Deck Dungeon and Hostage Negotiator as solo games are a little bit more variant, a little bit more lively than this one is. But it all depends what type of mood you're into. If you want to get into the grim, dark, noir, light a match and let it burn down your fingers just to feel something, then yeah, Arkham Noir is going to be a game for you.
If you're looking for sustenance out of a game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like playing with a deck of cards, like a normal like bicycle deck of cards.
Yeah.
Only difference is just the art. So
the art, the theme.
Yeah.
How you manipulate the game is a little different, which I appreciate, but ultimately, it's a simple solitaire game.
Yeah.
This one, just like regular solitaire, will probably win more often than lose.
Yeah.
Against you. So you're definitely in an uphill battle. I think I'm at maybe a 20% win rate with it, personally.
I'm at a 0%, and I'm not afraid to admit that.
Yeah.
It was a rough few goes. I even, before we started recording this, I even had you play for me just to make sure I wasn't doing something wrong.
Screwing up the rules
and then
somewhere.
I'm watching, I'm like, oh no, okay. No, it's just hard.
It's just tough, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to manage everything at once, and you sometimes, because of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like your bicycle 52 card solitaire. Like, you don't get the right cards, and you're just going to lose.
Yeah.
This one, unfortunately, unlike solitaire, you don't really realize it until you're way too far in.
Yeah.
So, not necessarily a terrible thing, but kind of wish you would know that you have no chance before you wasted that, 10, 15 extra minutes on it.
Mm.
It is relatively fast unless you go into that long con.
Yeah. So who would you suggest this for?
Traveling Lovecraft fans that don't want to drag huge amounts of cards and just kind of want to have something pocket-sized with them.
Mm.
Otherwise, I would recommend a standalone scenario with a Arkham LCG deck.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe take 100 cards, Chaos Bag, and go.
Yeah.
That's going to be a little bit easier and a lot more narrative and fun than this.
Yeah, and I'm almost there because I would suggest this for people who are hardcore H.P. Lovecraft fans. And it's not hardcore, I can't get enough of H.P. Lovecraft stories, but people who read the books enough that want to see what these characters may look like or what these places may look like. Because mostly what you're getting with this is the art. There's nothing really more than that. So I wouldn't suggest it for someone who is a big fan of the LCGs or pretty much wants a story to go along with their game. This is just, hey, I've got a little time to waste. I'm not really looking to read or engage my brain or anything. I just want to play this game.
Right. It's a puzzle you can poke at, but don't look at it for substance or story.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's who I would not recommend this for, is someone who needs more narrative or needs something to actually this is what I'm doing. Like this, you have to come up with your story on your own.
Yeah.
It's almost like playing like Magic the Gathering. Like, okay, I do this, which makes me allowed to cast this, which makes me summon these goblins, which makes me do this. Like, you kind of just have to do that in order to get that narrative feel on this. Theme, it's there in the art, but that's where it's at, and that's where it stops.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. I would not, like I said, I would not rush out and suggest everybody on the market, should buy this game. If it sounds interesting to you, and you like a solo puzzle to noodle around, and don't mind not having a lot of meat on the bones, yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something more, move along and pick up the LCG Arkham Horror or One Deck Dungeon if you're looking for a solid solo pocket travel game, or if you're looking for Hostage Negotiator for like another, again, variant travel game. Hostage Negotiator has its own flaws, which we'll probably do a review on that one later on. But
I mean, we touched on them briefly during our traveling episode way back in the day. But yeah, that's definitely, because I know that they came out with a sequel to it last Gen Con, or was that...
Well, Crime Wave hit, I think it was 2 years ago now, and then they just did a Kickstarter last summer.
That's what it was.
Which is the career, almost campaign story arc one, which is still yet to ship. Should be sometime this year. So, probably when that comes out, we'll do the review for that with all the different expansions and options on it, because that's kind of the complete package at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, that wraps up Arkham Noir. Unless you have any other final thoughts?
No.
All right. So, as always, if you're looking to hunt a killer and do something like that, they're a fun subscription box. You can always use the code Arcanum to get a discount on it. We've been routinely more active on our socials this year than our last year. So, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Am I missing one? No, I think that's it.
I mean, also our email address. You can always reach out to us, tabletoparcanum@gmail.com.
Yep.
Otherwise, everything is always going to be Tabletop Arcanum. We don't play around with adding extra fun underscores, letters, anything like that.
Yep. No cute way of playing around with it.
But otherwise, our next episode, we are looking at Scythe. It's been around.
Yeah,
we've been around.
By Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemaier Games. Last summer I got to do the whole Rise of Fenris campaign. So it's a lot of fun. But we'll dive into what's good, what's bad, who we recommend it for, who we don't. Next time on our next episode. So I think that's about it, isn't it?
Nah, that's it.
All right. Well, this has been Justin.
And Ricky. And I mean, if you really want noir, don't stand in the shadows over there, being all awkward. No.
But it's how I feel.
Justin, it's 2020. We're living in full color.
No, we're not. It's the 20s all over again.
No, the Roaring 20s.
We're back into Noir Town. Woo! Or honestly, episode 50 coming up soon.
Oh yes.
Don't forget to submit your questions to Tabletop Arcanum at any one of those mentionable socials. Until next time, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Tabletop Arcanum, hosted by Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, and featuring the original music by Paul Moore and Isaac Gilbert. You can follow us on most social media platforms. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. As always, thanks for listening.